Alright guys, Skepticism Part 2, Skepticism in Reading. This is going to work kind of the same way as in math, but it's a bit different because reading is a much more complex and a much bigger thing. Math is relatively contained. One problem, usually no more than like 5 skills, that's it. In reading, you've got to be skeptical of every single word, every punctuation, every quote-unquote typo, every weird phrasing, everything, right? All of it. Some of our students have a language barrier. Most of our students just don't understand the entire passage, and that's the whole point. Okay? Most of our students misread the entire passage. Not 12 or 30%, not 60 or 80%, 100% of it. This is most evident in, if you have done it, the worksheet Sir Walter Elliott. In Sir Walter Elliott, the students read the passage and then they are asked, what is the tone of this passage? Now the tone, as we know, is very obviously kind of humorous, a little bit of mockery, it's a little silly. All of the students will usually say, oh, I don't know, is it scientific and objective? And they don't get it, okay? Sometimes it is a skill-based thing, but most of the time they fundamentally misunderstand all of the passage. And at these points in time, you can drop down to grammar, you can use grammar to support reading, you can do lots of things. But I want to teach you more so how to spot it and how to be skeptical. So, complex language. If they are using complex language, if you see complex language at all, that is a sign that they just don't understand anything. The way that the students are taught in school is basically the more complex their language is, the higher a score they generally get on whatever test, whatever essay, whatever they're doing. So they intentionally make things more and more complex until they don't understand what they are literally writing. Like, they don't understand it at all. I have had so many instances where it just happens like every single day. A student will type some like very elaborate response that's super complicated, and I'll say clarify, and they'll say, I don't know, I don't know. And they literally don't even understand what they just said, okay? Super common. You gotta look out for this. What do I do in response to this? I have a very, very select few words that I will use. Clarify, elaborate, explain, give example, also give evidence, but that kind of thing. These are the things, right? That's it. Pretty much entirely, this is all I do. Also, I like to just type the first 4 letters to be even more brief. Why do I do this? Because students also cannot understand anything that you type. So, don't speechify, right? I also will explain this as if to a 5-year-old. Okay, so explain it like, really, if 5-year-olds seem too, old for you, like, tell them to explain it to a 3-year-old. It doesn't matter. No topic in our curriculum is so complex that it cannot be explained in very simple language, okay? I promise. I made most of this stuff, right? So definitely, it's all very simple. It can be explained very simply. If they are using complex language, it is a sign that they do not understand it at all. When you go off script in reading, what does it mean? Okay, as a result of this, it means that you are going to take them through every single tiny detail of every sentence that pertains to the question that comes from the passage. A lot of times what I will do is I will tell students to type the relevant sentence from the passage for me so that I know what sentence they think is pertinent here. And then I will go through it step by step. One of the things we used to do, which my seasoned folks will remember, and you guys, if you are new, might not, well, obviously won't. We used to break every single sentence down, like define this first word, define this second word. Now define these 2 words together as a phrase. The 2 words that you just defined. Now define this 3rd word. Now define all 3 of those words together as a phrase. Like, it was so detailed and so tedious. But it was a thing that we did for a while because it was a thing we thought might help. We have since, scaled that back quite a bit, and obviously as you can see. But keeping that idea in mind, when a student doesn't get something, you've got to go nuclear like that. Like, we've got to go down, just crazy pants McGee, and go down to that teeny tiny level of detail. So we're talking, like, define every single word that you don't even think they might misunderstand, because I guarantee they probably did misunderstand it. If it has any more than, like, 5 letters in it, they probably don't know what it means, okay? So it's possible they misunderstood words. It's possible they misunderstood phrases. Sometimes you can understand two words individually, but not necessarily what they mean together. So you're going to want to check for that. You're going to want to check for clauses. You're going to want to check for an understanding of the relationship between the subject and the verb and the direct object, things of that nature inside the sentence. That's where grammar comes in, right? So we're going to get super detailed. That's what off-script in reading means. Remember, and I will say this a million times, that your goal when teaching reading is it is not to get the answer. That's not what your goal is. I don't care about the answer. Arvin doesn't care about the answer. We don't care about the answer. The answer will come when the student understands the fundamental elements of the world that we live in, the fundamental reading skills that they need, and the fundamental facts of the passage. Okay, that's what you're focused on. You're focused on teaching them real world knowledge if it is missing. So things about history that are applicable to, for example, the Dubois passage. You are focused on teaching them actual reading skills. For example, finding supporting evidence and actually understanding what the sentence says, which leads into the third thing. You need to make sure that they understand what the sentences say. Okay, that's your actual goal. After you do those three things, the student will get the answer, I promise. Okay? If the student doesn't get the answer, then you just got to go back to the drawing board and do those things again, right? So revisiting, hey, let's remember about the world. Let's remember what the passage says. Let's bring them together. Nope, that didn't work. Okay, let's rephrase the world in a different way. Let's rephrase the passage in a different way. Let's go back to the question. Nope, that didn't work. You just keep going, okay? Again, don't get defeated. This is the whole point of it. In addition to not understanding the passage, I mentioned this before, they will likely understand nothing that you say to them about the passage. This is very, very obvious, okay, but we miss it all the time. But, like, if they don't understand the passage, they cannot possibly begin to understand anything that you say about the passage because you actually understand the passage. It's not going to work, right? So it seems really obvious, but we forget about this a lot. Don't explain the passage to them because they will equally not understand what you're saying. You have to go through at this nuclear level every single word, every single phrase. That's what you're aiming for. Don't explain anything to them because I promise they will not understand what you say just as much as they don't understand the passage. So, stick to your very, very brief things. You can use mine, you can develop other ones, but I really think, personally, that the ones I've developed are kind of the best and most succinct ones, right? Clarify is very, very clear. I did not thoroughly understand what you said. This is super important because most of the time students, like, if you say, wait, can you explain that? Or what do you mean by this? Their response will literally be, huh? Like, they don't understand when you ask them to clarify what they've said if you say it in any more words than just the one word, clarify. I have seen this a million times. It's insane. That's why I have, kind of pared it down to just that one word. Explain is very, very clear. It means I need you to give a further explanation of whatever you've said. Give evidence, give an example. Very, very clear, right? Like, all these things are very short. It's easy for the student to comprehend. The student is going through kind of an emotional chaos because there's so many words that they're dealing with. Passages have a lot of words. So just keeping all that stuff in mind. Stay skeptical. Stay awesome. You guys are great.